Well, we're not really live. So you're watching this. We're not completely live. But welcome to the Navigate With Us podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Colleen.
Yeah, so nice to meet you all. So this is our first one that we're doing of this. What do you think about that, Colleen?
Oh, goodness. Well, this is certainly taking me out of my comfort zone. If anyone that knows me, I'm slightly introverted, but I think from the day one that I met you, Nate, I think that has been your thing where you've helped me, I guess, get me out of my comfort zone. So here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And so for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, we have a travel vlog. So you might be just listening to the podcast and saying who are these two schmucks on the mics? But we have a travel vlog that we started very serendipitously. I can't say that word right. Serendipitously?
Yeah, by chance, maybe?
Well, no. We started our first vlog was in 2019.
It was, yes.
First travel vlog, December of 2019.
And we all know what happened 3 months later.
Yeah. So, but we once things open back up, we've been making a series of vlogs. We do. We've done some land trips. We do a lot of cruising, though.
Yep. I think that's primarily what we gravitate towards. I think, living here in Florida, it's very accessible. There's cruise ports all around us. So, especially with the craziness of flying these days, it's been really nice to, drive a couple hours and we're near a cruise port. So it's allowed us to keep traveling, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with that as well too. So we've got a little agenda today. So now that you know a little bit about us, we're going to talk a little bit about where our love of travel came from. And again, we want to make sure this is a travel, our channel is a travel vlogging channel. It's cruise heavy.
Yes.
But we do other types of travel, though we haven't done some land travel in quite a while. But we do some land travel. So we're going to talk a little bit about where our love of travel came with, talk a little bit about how we met, because I think most people don't know anything about us. All of a sudden our videos just started appearing online, and people get to see one side of us. And then again, why did we create our channel, here? I think it's important. I think every YouTuber has a origin story. Mm-hmm. And why do we create this channel? So, I'll start with you, Colleen. So love of travel, where did your love of travel, come from? And, why do you still love to travel today?
Well, I think for me, love of travel actually started when I was very, very young. I was an only child. I am an only child. So, my parents, I think, were avid travelers before they had me. And so that just became kind of incorporated into, my family lifestyle. So, really fortunate, went on my first trip was Aruba, and then, a cruise. So, it really kind of took me out of the United States, got to see different cultures, different foods. I mean, young 8-year-old Colleen had goat cheese pizza in Aruba, which
very exotic. The exotic goat cheese pizza.
It was for an 8-year-old Colleen. If it wasn't American cheese in a wrapper, processed cheese, I was a little phobic of it. Had alfalfa, I think, for the first time in Aruba. It's just
exotic alfalfa. The gazelle goes to eat the exotic alfalfa.
It was just something special. It was something special to be taken out of your comfort zone. And I think that's what travel still does for me today. Being a full-time wheelchair user, I think travel can be, it can be challenging, but I think that's one of the things that I find so rewarding is when it does push me out of the comfort zone. I get home and I look back and I say, okay, all right, we did it. This is pretty epic.
Yeah, and we've had some challenging. I wouldn't say challenging, but definitely, we do a lot of planning, and sometimes our planning doesn't really work out.
Yep. I mean, it helps sort of, I think, smooth the bumps in the road of travel. But yeah, there's so much unpredictability of travel, and you can't plan for everything. So I think it does, as as probably a type A planner type individual, again, it just forces me to, when challenges do come up, just say, okay, I'm just, we'll get through this. It's okay. Let's like talk about it, think through it. And I think it gives you that kind of added, foresight to planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a note to the listeners, if you're doing audio only, you might hear some weird sounds every once in a while, and that is our precocious little Boston Terrier, 13-year-old Boston Terrier Tessie. So we do have her bed down here. She has chosen not to make a guest appearance today, but she is around out and about.
So how about you, Nate? Where did your love of travel start?
So, I think, growing up, we didn't take a lot of, I would say, like vacation. Well, we took vacations, but they were always nearby. So we used to go up to Hermit Island in Maine and do a lot of camping. And I always enjoyed that. And I had a lot of friends, growing up that would go travel to different places. And I always wanted to do that. So I think when I finally got out on my own, getting out of school and getting out of, university and stuff like that, and started making it, a big whopping, I don't know what I was making. I think I was making like $27,000 a year.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So just, scrape some pennies together and try to go out and do some traveling. And I enjoy the adventure. I enjoy, unlike you, I think I enjoy the unknown. I enjoy, I don't like to really sometimes plan things out. I like to have that kind of higher plan there, but I think you would say that I'm probably not the best planner.
Well, that's wwhy we're married.
You're
the yin to my yang.
I'm the something to your something. That's for sure.
I help you plan, and you help me just to be carefree. It's a perfect match.
It is a perfect match, and I think we've done. I think I've done more traveling with you than at any point in my life. I don't know if you feel the same, or if maybe you were kind of a jet setter before.
I think once we had done, some more island travel, I think my family decided that they really loved Florida, and some of the barrier islands felt like going to the Caribbean. So we tended to gravitate more just towards the United States in our travels here. So there's still an awful lot to see here in the United States, but I think you and I have probably experienced maybe more diverse travel between land and sea and where we've gone than I probably did with my parents. But I think the travel down here to Florida kind of helped formulate my love of this area, and then eventually us moving down here. So
yeah, I think actually that's probably a great transition point. So do you want to tell folks how we met?
Sure. So Nate and I met in 2005, and at the time I was working full time. I was getting my MBA at night. And
she's very smart, by the way. So that's just a hint to everyone out there. Marry someone that's smarter than you. Just saying. Okay, continue.
Oh, he's too sweet. So yeah, at that time I had a lot of friends that had married, and going to the bar to meet someone wasn't really my cup of tea. So I went online and I put up a profile. And that is how I found Nate. And
yeah, and I think people need to understand. In 2005, if you're like 20 years old, you're like, ooh, you met online, like big whoop. Like everybody meets online nowadays. But back then, that was kind of like that wasn't a thing people did.
No, I had a boss at the time that ended up meeting his wife through this same website, matchmaking website, and I figured, why not? I'll give it a shot. My poor parents, though, I probably put them through through just heck thinking about you're going to meet a stranger you don't even know, and but I was always safe. I always had friends that knew where I was going, and so Nate and I met for a a very early drink, and later in life I learned why.
Yeah, so we met at this place called the Black Cow in Newburyport. We're originally from the New England area. And I did an afternoon date because my thought was if this thing went sideways, I at least be able to save my evening.
Is that horrible?
Hey, that was like, mid-20s Nate. Like my brain didn't quite work as well. I think you might say my brain doesn't work well today, but that's a little bit of where that came. And so, we met. It was great. We obviously had a great first date, and there was a second date, and then you took off to Sanibel.
Yep.
And
actually, it was Fort Myers Beach because Hurricane Charlie had just hit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and we were supposed to go to Sanibel, but the resort we typically stayed at was badly damaged, and so Fort Myers Beach was actually pretty not spared, was spared and didn't have a lot of damage. So we ended up going to Fort Myers Beach. But yeah, we chatted.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, we did chat. I think there was some chatting, but we got married then. So obviously we dated for a while. We got married a few years later in Sanibel. So again, Florida always holds a special place for us here as well too. And then where was our first trip together, though?
Our first trip was actually a land trip, and It was to Chicago to visit some of your friends.
Yes.
And, I do think that travel, not only just living together maybe before you're married, but travel really helps you understand how a person reacts to situations, who they are in the best and the worst scenarios.
Yeah, because we had a lot. That was a learning experience, even something like your shower bench. So I think people don't, people that are able-bodied don't really realize like that, if you can't stand in a shower, like how do you take a shower, right?
Right.
And I remember we had the shower bench at the time that required tools.
I remember we packed like my father's drill in our suitcase.
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to explain that to TSA? Like, I've got a drill and I got all these mechanical things. And then I remember being in that hotel room in Chicago trying to remember, okay, what piece went where? I think luckily now we have a little bit better of a setup.
Absolutely. And I think, going to a city for the first time together, I look back and I go, what were we thinking? Because it was the first time Nate had to like help me with like curb cutouts that just were non-existent. You get to an end of the sidewalk and it would just drop off. So by the end of that trip, I think you were an expert at
I was an expert navigator.
bumping me. Yes, you were bumping me up and down curves. And I think about too, how we even booked that hotel room. Like, I think now, like, I would never do that. I believe we used like a booking website. Like,
yeah, we used something. It was like through my work. It was like a discount website, and it was just like, right, like I don't even think did I get us an accessible room, or did we try to do that after the fact?
It was after the fact. You couldn't do it during the booking, if I remember correctly. It was after the fact. I think we called the hotel directly. And they said, oh, yeah, we'll put you in an accessible room. But, oh, my God, 40-something-year-old Colleen, I don't know if I could do that now.
Yeah.
Like the unpredictability of, are we actually going to get the room we want and need?
Yeah, we now like we double check the reservation. We then like call 5 times. We call like the day before, because believe it or not, like we've gone to hotels and it's like they're like, oh, you need an accessible room. They're like looking at Colleen's in her wheelchair. They're like, you need an accessible. Like they're questioning. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and even I remember back in the day. This was probably mid 1990s. Even just traveling with my parents, we'd show up at a hotel, already have reserved an accessible room, and they'd say, oh, well, the person that was in there before decided to stay longer. So sorry, we don't have anywhere to put you. And, thank goodness for, ADA and some of the, just, I don't want to say pressure, but some of the things that have been now, become expected of hotels, and when you make a reservation and commitments, and not just you show up and say, sorry, we don't have anything for you.
Yeah, I think things have definitely gotten better, especially, with newer properties. I think the main thing we usually run into is like the high beds. Like that's still a thing. So like we really have to get pictures and stuff ahead of time. But Chicago was great. I mean, we had a great time. You learned that we went up in, I think it's now the Willis Tower, that I'm really afraid of heights.
And Nate learned that like Colleen has to have snacks packed with her at all times because hangry Colleen is not a pleasant Colleen.
So Colleen has two requirements, which is snacks and sleep. So one of us requires 6 hours of sleep. The other person requires a slightly more sleep.
Absolutely.
So let's pivot then. So we started the channel. So this is our first podcast on the channel, which we're super stoked about. Something that we've been talking about, wanting to do, for a while here. And I think the main thing is like I love making content. I think that's the first thing is like we really, I don't know, do you love making content as much as I love making content?
I do, but I also do it because I know how much you really love it. But I'm slowly really starting to appreciate it. It's definitely more of a creative side that, I've enjoyed tapping into. And again, seeing myself sort of grow and develop. And it's also a great way to document just our personal trips and have something to look back on, when we've been married for 40 years and, we're probably not as active and traveling at that point in our lives. So it's been something special making this content with you.
Yeah, I think it's been a learning experience. I think again, when we think about all the things that we do, travel's like one thing, right? And we've always been hard workers, but when you work, and again, I don't think that's the thing people realize is that making travel videos, it's hard. It's not, I mean, look, there's definitely harder things out there in the world, right? We're not like mining coal,
right?
We're not like launching rockets and putting them on Mars or something like that. But there's quite a bit of work that goes in there. And then, when you first start, like your videos are always just awful. They just are.
They really are. Oh goodness! I mean, we started in 2019 with just iPhones, and do we even have any mics?
I don't think we had any mics. Like we didn't know anything. No. We're just like, we'll just shoot it on our iPhones and it'll be fine. I don't think we knew anything about, we were watching YouTube back then. We had started watching it more. I think even years before that, I was like, why would somebody watch YouTube?
For hours on end, because that's what it does. It sucks you in sometimes.
That algorithm gets you and gets a hold of you. And then God forbid if you actually look at something different, like to do this podcast, like we had to get all this equipment. So I've been researching equipment. So now my feed is like cruise vlogs and like microphone reviews.
Exactly.
So hopefully it sounds good. So, leave us a comment down below if it sounds good, or if you're like, hey, we see those mics, you gotta spend some more money. You need some nicer mics.
I feel like it's definitely a good starting point.
It's a good starting point. Yeah. But, we also started the travel vlog, to show people about accessible travel, right? We don't focus like every element of the vlog because I don't think that's,
it's a part of my life being, disabled, but it's not my entire life. And so I think it's helpful to highlight because there are certainly lots of other people out in this world that, are either newly injured, developing an illness that's maybe impacting their mobility. And so I think it's, it's helpful to highlight. And I think, show that getting out and traveling and pushing yourself, it's super rewarding, and for me, how, why I wanted to start doing our Navigate with Colleen and Nate YouTube channel was someone at work actually said to me, why do you even travel if it takes this amount of work and effort and planning? Like, just stay home. Like, everything's accessible for you there.
So it's such a ridiculous.
It really is. And I don't think it was made, the comment was made in like any sort of malintent. It was just, it really just kind of opened my eyes to, oh my goodness, there's probably a whole world of people with varying levels of disabilities that are just too afraid to even start the process of planning a trip because they don't know where to begin. So, I think it's been helpful to kind of hopefully put out in the forefront of, it's possible. It's not that hard.
It is possible. I mean, it just takes a little bit of extra planning.
Yep.
I think the other thing we were hoping to do with this is we hope some of these travel companies, airlines, cruise lines, hotels, we're hoping this YouTube channel grows and that they start to see like the things that we have to go through and the people that design rooms, people that design airplanes, people that design this. Because, I mean, air travel is like probably one of the toughest things to do is for someone that's in a full-time wheelchair. And if you don't know someone that's even if you do know someone that's in a wheelchair, right? I mean, you don't get to see everything that they have to go through.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with having to hand over your wheelchair to perfect strangers and you just, it's your legs. You're just hoping that they're going to treat them cautiously, take care of it, put it onto the plane and it'll magically come up from, the belly of the plane when you get to your destination and nothing will be broken. I mean, we've been really fortunate, but we take tools with us now because, it's just, you don't want to be in a different state, a different country and run into a situation where, we can at least fix, I think, a majority of things that go wrong on my chair.
Yeah. I mean, that travel kit has grown, significantly over the years. And that's the other thing too, is you got to kind of plan ahead. But, we really, one day, like, I mean, I think at least my goal is like, I want to do this. I would love to do this full time. I mean, maybe that's years and years and years from now, like when we're retired and we're just keeping making our YouTube channels, but we'd love this to grow. And I think the other thing too, that's been really rewarding about the YouTube channel is the comments.
Absolutely. And I think it's very, for me, it's very heartwarming to hear that we are making a difference and people are seeing it, and whether they're able-bodied and this, life doesn't mean, doesn't have any significance to them. I think that it's eye-opening. And then, we've had folks that are disabled. We've had travel agents reach out to us that are working with disabled individuals to help them plan. And I think our content has been greatly appreciated. And so for that alone, it's been very rewarding.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is when we can, because again, when people see our videos, I don't think we make this clear enough. Like we work full time and we're not, I mean, we've done well in life, but like, we don't want to just, we don't spend our money willy nilly. And, especially there's many people out there that they only get maybe 2 vacations a year. Right. And I mean, I don't want someone to go on vacation and spend money on something that's going to be like, ugh.
And that may just be 2 vacations, one at home and maybe one that's, if they're fortunate to be able to actually go somewhere. So yeah, I agree. And especially just the cost of everything now has increased significantly. So I think that's been one of our I think our attributes is we're really focused on giving honest feedback. We don't get paid. We're paying for all these trips on our own.
We're paying for all these trips on our own. So hit that smash like button, hit that subscribe button. It does help. It does help, right? Again, anyone that's done YouTube knows, it takes a lot of followers before you start making any significant amount of money. But the views help, and the more people subscribe and the more people like, it's just going to help grow that channel. So, I mean, if you're finding value, really encourage you to come join us on our adventures. And as far as this goes, we're going to commit to this.
Yep, we are committing. I am going to boldly comment and state every 2 weeks we're going to put out a podcast.
We're going to start every 2 weeks. And the content, again, it's going to be us. We're going to look a little bit at the things going on in the world of travel. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be us kind of, reacting to those things, giving our thoughts, giving our opinions on that. So something very different than the rest of the channel. And I think that's one of the things that we want to make sure everything's travel focused, right? We don't want to be one of those channels that's like all over the place doing 10,000 different things. But, I think it's a way for us to put out some additional content, to put it out in a different form. And some people may really, you might like the podcast, and maybe you only tune into the podcast and you're like, hey, the vlog stuff's okay, but I really like the podcast. Or maybe you just like the vlogging stuff and you're like, yeah, podcast is okay. But we're, trying to keep, I think the main thing is, keep people informed, keep people entertained. I think that's part of why we've done as well as we've done so far, is that, we have a good time. At least, I'm having a good time. I don't know if you're having
a great time. And I'm hoping that it comes across in our videos. It is obviously heavily edited in some extent, we're not going to show you every single waking moment of our vacations and our trips, but, this is, I think, a different format for people to really see the real life Nate and Colleen and who we are and why we're doing this and our passion behind it and what it means to us and kind of where we want to see the channel grow.
Yeah, because there's definitely, when we're making a vlog, we're trying to tell a story.
Yep.
Right. And as we've gotten further along, we now think a little bit more about like, hey, what's the type of vlogs we want to make? So it is a little bit of directing. I want to say it's genuine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we're not like, editing stuff out.
No, but you're not going to see me brushing my hair, getting ready for dinner,
You're not going to see Colleen yelling at me. That's really, that's a lot of my editing time. Spent on.
Stop it.
No, Colleen's wonderful. She never yells at me, but you get to see in some ways it's a show, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's meant to be entertaining and
right.
informative, right? And I think that's what we try to do. We try to make it fun and informative, right? Because that's the whole point of YouTube, right? If people get bored 10 minutes in,
they won't be tuning in.
No. And we definitely we love trying things, and we love, I think, feedback as well too. So, if there's things that you want us to either vlog about or have on this podcast, and I think that's why we're doing this podcast too, because this opens up a whole different can of worms. I mean, we can do a lot here.
Absolutely. And I think, interviews down the road, maybe with some other content creators, where I think we've got some big dreams and we'll see how things evolve. But yeah, I think it's just a different forum. And I think I'm hoping that people are receptive to it.
Great. So I think that's going to do it.
I think it is.
I know.
Episode 1.
Episode 1.
The origin.
The origins. Yes. I wanted to call it the origin. What did you want to call it originally?
How it all began or where it all started. I don't know. It's like too many words. I'm like, the origin sounds like, a movie of like comic.
Navigate with Colleen and Nate. The origin story. Yeah, no, but this is us. This is us. So, I hope you had a good time today. If you did enjoy the show, please give it a thumbs up. Again, we would love your feedback, so please comment down below. Hit that notification bell. Subscribe to us. I don't know if you have to subscribe differently on YouTube podcast, but if you're just on YouTube listening to this through like YouTube Music or something, we do have a YouTube channel, so you can go over and check that out. But I think that's going to be it for today. So again, thanks for tuning in to our first ever Navigate With Us podcast. Again, I'm Nate.
And I'm Colleen.
And remember to navigate your world.